How many times have you walked past the Paul J. Gutman Library? A 30-year-old building is bound to have a mystery. But have you noticed it yet? The library was established in 1992 at the Philadelphia College of Textiles and Sciences, now known as Thomas Jefferson University. While the university name has changed over the course of the years, the library has held up its name and architecture. Some believe the architecture consists of gargoyles, but those gargoyles are the faces of respected alumni, trustees, and the notable Gutman family.
Hello, so I'm here with
Jen Stankiewicz.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, my name is Louise. Hi, I'm Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
I'm Joel.
Hi, Joel.
Hi, I'm Janet.
Hi, Janet.
Hi, my name is Pam.
Hi, Pam. So there's 20 different faces around the Gutman Library.
Yeah.
They're students and trustees of the years between like 1993 and 1995. Have you ever noticed them?
No, not before today.
No, I have not.
You have not noticed them.
I've never noticed them.
Never noticed them.
When I first noticed them, I was weirded out by them.
What do you think the importance is of these faces being around the library is?
To be honest, I have no idea.
You do appreciate that there's almost like a time capsule in the library or on it,
Yeah, now that I look at it, yes, definitely.
but you've never noticed it before.
No, they're kind of small.
I think it shows that they're giving importance to the value of their founders and people who are, been here for a long time, but I've never noticed them, so maybe they should bring more attention to it.
That's a great answer.
I think it's nice to like keep them around sort of as like a reminder of like the past, I'd say. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm guessing it's sort of a take on the whole gargoyle idea, like sort of using what is interesting detail, but kind of making it personal for the school.
I think it's really cool that people can actually make that and just, put them on a building.
And it's crazy. They're all different people, and
Right.
I feel like there's not very many students that even know that they exist.
Not at all. I don't think anyone I know ever knew this existed.
There you go.
We spent about, I think it may have been 45 minutes where they actually put the plaster strips on our faces and then let that cure and then turn that into a negative. They created the faces out of those molds. That was a pretty simple process. I mean, it felt a little uncomfortable because breathing was a little bit of an issue, but it was minor.
Yeah, so it was exciting. The process was interesting. I didn't know if I was going to be claustrophobic, but I mean, they cast your face. They play nice music and everything. I think they put some kind of gel or Vaseline or something on your face to keep the cast from sticking, and then they pretty much plaster you up. They pull your hair back and they set you back, and then I forget exactly how long we had to be in the cast. Maybe 20 minutes once they had it all set up, probably another 20, so maybe an hour complete. They asked us questions about ourselves, like I was an engineer, I was a musician, and I think they used those things to craft around the face. So if you look at the symbols that are around the face, they're usually representative of something that person was involved. All of these things, depending on who the person was, were kind of crafted around the face to make that gargoyle there. It just felt like, all right, we were trying to, do some things at the school during that time as students beyond our academic careers, and it seemed like a good place to end up.
Then we met with the artist and she prepared our faces by creating a mask. You felt a tad claustrophobic because this form had to go over your face, all of your face, and you had tubes that went up your nostrils so you could breathe while the mask hardened. And then she took that mask and reversed it out into terracotta, and that's what's actually placed on the outside of the building. We had to have our hair pulled back. You had to sit there and be still for a period of time. I'm gonna guess it was like 30 minutes to an hour. She met with us one at a time, and we scheduled the time specifically so she could get us an order, and then she did the rest of the process.
Why I was chosen at the time, because they really didn't give us a lot of information. They basically said I was chosen, and then I was like, okay, it's fine, let's see what this is. And then after they did the mold, or sometime during that time, they actually asked us to write up a bio about ourselves. And there is a time capsule in the library somewhere that is to be opened another, I think it was, if I recall correctly, it's supposed to be 100 years after the opening of the library.
I don't know if it was a selection process or a volunteering. I think it stemmed from a lot of the students that I believe that are on the library were very active outside of academics at the school. I was a CA, a college ambassador, an RA. I was involved in student government. I was a student actions chair with student government. I was involved in 2 fraternities at the school, one of them being Phi Psi, the textile fraternity there. I certainly, thought about it. I was like, this is interesting, and became like a difficult thing to not want to be a part of, because it was very exciting to have our new library be built during that time, because it was a big deal. The old library was much older.
There were numerous students, alumni, faculty, and staff that were selected to participate in this. They made sure that it was a broad selection. So there were numerous students, student leaders around campus that were selected, students that just made a difference on campus in some way, shape, or form. And so those were the students that were featured.
I've been back several times. I've taken some friends to actually see it. I've taken my children to go see it. I've taken my ex-wife to go see it. My ex-wife actually is from Ireland, and she came to the States, and she actually ended up going to Philadelphia University, and so she saw my face back there as well. I would say it was an honor to have been selected, and I appreciate the time and effort that she put into creating those molds, and it was an experience, and I think she did done a great job. I would have liked to have seen all of the molds and seen the whole process, because once they took the molds of our faces, we didn't see anything. We didn't really know what was going on behind the scenes in terms of how they created the actual mold from the negative, I guess. It would have been interesting to see that.
4 or 5 years ago, I was actually going there with my stepson, because he was considering graphic design there at Philadelphia University at the time. And we all walked over to the face and saw it was still there. And, nobody had broken anything off of it yet, I guess. So that was good to see. And I was thinking about it recently. It's funny you guys reached out, because it had been 30 years, and I was going through my old stuff, and I found an old Gutman library bookmark from that time. And so it made me try to go through my pictures, and I actually pulled them up recently to find an older picture of the gargoyle on the library that I had actually I had posted recently. So
I have them back to campus. We had a 20-year reunion. When I returned to the reunion, I was with 2 other women that are featured on the building. Lisa Souter, another young woman, Denise. We were all student leaders on campus. So Denise and I were in student government, specifically representing our class junior year and senior year. And then Lisa was SGA president senior year, and she was treasurer or something for a couple of years prior as well. So yes, I have returned to campus. I have 2 daughters. I don't think they've seen the mask in person. That is a goal at some point. When I went back to campus the last time, it was just with my 2 girlfriends. Actually, 3 girlfriends. There was another woman who was an RA. So we had a mini reunion as part of the reunion.
it's really, it just, it brings me back to that time. And it was a lot of fun being in school during that time, and the friendships made. And so, yeah, I love, sort of having that as a permanent memory beyond photographs, for sure, from a personal perspective. Just from a long-term perspective, I just think it, it humanizes something that is like a really great thing as far as the library and knowledge. And, knowledge comes from people. And so it's, and then you have the people sort of protecting the knowledge. So I think of it as like a really cool thing.
I think it's really cool. For a period of time, I had it as my icon for my personal email. I think I even posted on Instagram. Being immortalized on a building, kind of ranks up there. They did a time capsule in the front of the library that I guess they opened a decade or 2 later.
Renowned sculptor Sima created terracotta masks of 28 reputable students' faces, which are now displayed around the exterior of the Paul J. Gutman Library. If you were to take a closer look, their faces are also surrounded by their defining items and hobbies.
So, mission was to create something that would be a unification, a balance, if you will, of man, woman, nature, technology. I went to the school, I talked with students, I talked with teachers, I got copies of the curriculum. I kind of went into overdrive to find out everything I could find out. At that time, it was the College of Textiles and Science. And there were these computer-driven weaving machines. They looked to me like buildings. That's what I have here, the computer cards as buildings. And the machinery had gears. So this is gears. And there were so many plants on your campus, and nature was important to everybody. Everybody loved the fact that it was so green at your school. And so there's something on the bottom that is meant to be like plant forms. I don't know if your mascot is still a ram.
It is.
So here you go. Here's the ram's horns. And I had all these images in my head, and I just kind of played with the different images to create 3 designs for the surrounds, but they were interchangeable. So the tops and the bottoms could change. And I didn't want it to be boring. We could change the faces, but it seemed like it was more fun and more appropriate to change the faces and also change the surrounds based on who that face was. So like the person who's the athlete, his surround has the ram's horns, and somebody who was a technology person obviously had the gears and the computer parts. This is Gutman. Her earring is the symbol for pure wool. Everything was like lots of visual metaphors, lots of symbols. And there's the fan again. And there was something that was like a paper airplane because her son had recently died in a private plane crash. And so the library was dedicated to everything was so hands-on at your school. So these were meant to be like coils. This is like rope and plant forms, but also it reminded me of fingers because it was hands-on. You'll see these like around the lamppost in the front of the building and around the book drop. But it was really an exciting project because making these sculptures, it was like delicious. Here's a fan because how do you transition from at the corners? It was a really, really exciting project. So they wanted something that would be in the manner of Frank Furness's details. So we had a meeting, the architects, me, the school president, and all of the people at the school who were involved in this building project. And I asked the president, what was he proud of for this school, your school? So he said that it was known as the school that was in the city, in the country. So that was one thing. And he said that it was such an international community. So I had this idea that kind of was like when you used to go to get a photo taken at a party, and there would be a hole and you'd stick your head through the hole. And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was something and the different students would be sticking their heads through? So that was also in the back of my mind. And so you see the white box-like thing, that's a plaster mold. The brick clay was like swamp mud. So one of the challenges was it arrived at my studio in about 60 Dunkin' Donut buckets, and it was like swamp mud, and it was full of little baby rocks. So I had to hire the neighborhood kids. We kind of sifted this swamp mud through screens so that we could get rid of the rocks. And then picking up a pile of this mucky muck that is brick clay and flinging it into the plaster mold and then pounding it down. But it was so mucky and sticky that I'd pound it down and I'd pound it, and as I picked my hands up to pound it again, it would follow me because it was like sticking. That was a challenge I was not prepared for. So what do? As an artist, as a creative person, we lined up all of these molds. What are there, 40, 50 molds on very low tables, pieces of plywood on empty buckets. And then we put dry cleaner bags down, and then we sat on them and wiggled. I'd sling it down and it would splash all over the place. Then it would like fall down from the ceiling. That's why I was working outside. What happens, the clay's wet, the plaster draws the water out of the clay shrinks and it pops out of the plaster mold. It takes about a day. And if you have a design, for instance, if you have a design that goes like this and you cut it, you're going to have grout lines. If you cut it, it's going to shrink, but the grout line doesn't shrink. The biggest challenge, David, was the math. Calculating the shrinkage. The math was insane. My assistant with a calculator, which had adding machine tape, it was like piles of adding machine tape coming out of the calculator all onto the floor, trying to figure out how much each brick was going to shrink. And then it turned out it didn't matter anyway. It ended up being a job for the installer to correct. So luckily, we got an installer who was trying to make it work as a design. I haven't thought about this for 30 years, but there was another thing that was a major challenge. I had to hire people in the neighborhood to come over for pizza to wrap each brick in bubble wrap to put it in a truck, and then somebody drove it up to Maine. But what I totally did not ever think about, the bricks got delivered to your campus. They built the building without my part, but they used styrofoam squares to just stick in there while they were building the rest of the building. So there were these empty spaces on the building. I did line drawings and put them on the floor for the 28 different window corners. So everybody's got they had a number, a name, a Polaroid, and I had to open their eyes. And I used terracotta colored clay, and everything had to be smooth, almost polished. Now I have 500 bricks. My daughter, a couple of students from the campus, and we're like, yeah, but that one doesn't match. The color doesn't match. Not only did we have to find a home for it, the right home for each of the 500 bricks, but we had to pick out the best one. It took a year. It was a big production. If I were to do this again, I love the idea of the faces and casting the faces. So I might do that again. If I was going to do surrounds, they would have something about the history and the mystery of the site and the people. It would be different now, wouldn't it? I mean, you've changed art that is a placemaker, art that is part of an architectural setting, whether it's indoors or outdoors, has the opportunity to say something about the people who use the space and to say something about the history. What I find exciting is that you've excited me. You've excited my memory bank. This is a long time ago. Thank you for the serendipity of contacting me.